Hi everyone, this is Alan McKay. Welcome to episode 62. I'm chatting with Pete Draper. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Alan McKay Podcast. Alan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Alan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Alan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on alanmckay.com.
Okay, so I'm going to keep this pretty brief. The last couple of weeks I've been actually knocked out with the flu and I've been trying to get back on top of everything now. So episodes are coming out a little later than I'd like. But that all being said, at the same time I'm preparing for this month, which is March, I'm going to be speaking at the It's Art Masterclass in Paris in a little over a week. And then I get back for 2 days and I'm off to New York for a week over Easter. And then I'm in San Diego and I'm hoping to sneak in a trip to Portland in the middle of all of that as well. So it's been pretty nuts just trying to keep on top of everything going on at the moment, as well as the past couple of months I've been working on something that I'll be announcing pretty soon, which I'm really excited about as well. So lots of stuff going on, but I wanted to get this episode out, which I've been wanting to do for a while. Just Pete and I have both got pretty crazy schedules, so trying to find the right time that we can both free up to do this has been a bit of a struggle. But finally, we've managed to get this episode together, which I was really excited about. Pete's been doing this, as far as I know, as long as I have, and he's been doing a lot of phenomenal work coming from effects, which I guess is just like me as well, and coming from the UK and getting to work on a lot of great stuff. He's worked on a lot of really cool film projects, as well as contributing a lot to 3D World magazine back in the day, and a lot of tutorials and other cool stuff. In addition to that, he wrote the Deconstructing the Elements book series, which was really cool. I've heard nothing but great things about that. And in the more recent years, I guess the last 6 or 7 years, he moved to India. I think he's in Hyderabad right now, working on a lot of really cool film projects through a company that he's partner in, I believe. And yeah, it was just really cool kind of chatting to him because obviously he's got a pretty diverse background as well as an extensive one. And on top of that, getting to work internationally at a lot of different places, especially India, which has a pretty massive industry as well as a film industry in general. You know, obviously Bollywood has got its own thriving film industry there, which I thought was really cool to kind of tap into. So there's a lot of stuff we get into, and I think it was just really kind of fun to chat along. It's a bit of a slower episode, but at the same time, I think for a lot of people with a lot of experience, hopefully it'll be kind of nostalgic. And for everyone else, I think there's just a lot of really great gold mines of information in here. So I'm a bit tongue-tied. Hopefully all that made sense, but I'm just going to get this out and get moving forward. I got 1 week left before the It's Art Masterclass. So anyone who is coming to Paris, I'm really excited about this. It's going to be really fun to get to meet everyone and get to chat as well as hang out with a lot of friends. I think this is going to be really fun just because most of the speakers are actually good friends of mine, so I'm really excited just to kind of get to hang out and have some drinks, so should be a lot of fun. Okay, so let's dive into this episode, and if you want to get to the show notes, just go to www.alanmckay.com/62, and I've got a lot of really cool stuff coming up, by the way, lots of free stuff. I'm finally going to be revamping my entire website, and the goal of it is when it goes back online, it's going to have lots and lots of content. I want to really kind of make it a very content-driven website because up until now, it's kind of more been, I think, just a place to get my email address from and not much else, as well as obviously the podcast, stuff like that. But I'm going to be really adding a lot to it and constantly putting a lot of content, both career-related as well as 3D for Max, Maya, Houdini. There's going to be a lot of really cool stuff, actually. I'm really excited about it, as well as HD video footage, lots of different stuff, actually. I'll be announcing plenty of stuff soon, but I'm excited about that. There's too much going on, but I'm excited also once the Paris event's over that I'll actually get a chance to really stay in one spot for a bit and focus on a lot of things that I've been kind of working on for the last 6 months that are very close to being finished. So anyway, let's get into this episode with Pete Draper.
So I'm Pete Draper. I'm the CEO, division head co-founder of a company called Makuta. We're a VFX studio based out in Hyderabad. I've been running for about six plus years now. I've been in India for around just over 7 now. Got dragged over here back in 2009, I think it was, for one feature, which was off the back of another one which I did remotely when I was a contractor. So I've been in the game for about as long as you, mate. So I'd say about 20 years now or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty nuts. Like, I was gonna say, like, how did we? I mean, I guess like we're both doing the same kind of stuff. Like, you came from doing effects, and like, you know, both of us kind of grew up around the same time into the CG world. So I mean, I know you're doing a lot of the 3D World magazine articles back in the day, and I was doing a few as well and stuff like that. But you know, it was kind of funny. We only met 3 months ago or 6 months ago.
Yeah, that was kind of surreal. Like the last, God knows, like 15 plus years, about, we must meet up, mate. It's like, yeah. And every time, either my schedule's not, been favourable, or yours and or something, or you've been, I've been in LA, you've been on the other side of the pond. I think one time when I was in LA back in 2006, I tried to get in touch, and I got back home, and we were like, man, you were here? I was like, yeah. Oh shit, you should have got in touch. Freaking tried. So
one of these days. But yeah, it finally happened. So it's pretty brief, but good to have a few drinks and hang out. So, and you were over here for a premiere, was that right?
Yeah, it was for a film called Bahubali, which is the first part of this 2-part film that we're doing. Originally, it was going to be the 1 part, but then they realised they had enough material for 2 films. So
so it was a Hobbit kind of situation.
Kind of. So yeah, we're shooting the second part at the moment. They're about a third through the feature at the moment. So we're shooting. We've just finished like a couple of night shoots the other day, which was quite grueling, but it happens.
Yeah.
They're off doing another bunch of episodes now, which obviously I can't talk about too much at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But so we came across for a prem and to promote that, plus looking into other technologies and speaking to people to do with the previews for the second film. So I went and spoke to a bunch of studios and make sure we got the workflow right, and a bunch of chats over there for not only for real-time stuff, also for VR and what have you. Because the studio I run, we've got close ties with AMD. One of our investors is CEO of Radeon.
Mm-hmm.
Part of AMD. So we were all kind of hooking up with them, doing the rounds and what have you. And again, it was just a case of look at the draw, we managed to hook up, mate. Because it was like, I think it was like second to last night or something.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a bit nuts. But yeah, I mean, I've been in the game I started out in multimedia back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So that one multimedia company that I used to work for back in the 90s, and then got into effects and what have you. And that
this is going to be really shitty, but I think it's at the point where we're at where I can say, like, can you explain what multimedia is for anyone who doesn't know what the hell?
Okay, well, for those of you who aren't as old as us,
because now it's just like the way of life. It's like 3D and everything else is so normal.
No, it was kind of like the CBT e-learning kind of stuff back in the 90s when the net was just coming out. A lot of things, that anything from the complicated to the mundane, okay, we need an e-learning package for it. Like, right, okay. So even we worked on one to be able to control, I think it was Alta Vista 4. It was like, oh my good God, how many icons do I need to animate? And what was the one guy who said? Oh yeah, we like the paperclip from Microsoft Word. Can you do an animated version of that? I think shortly afterwards I left that company. It's because I was going nowhere, banging my head against the wall. But it kind of got me into being, like a generalist, learning pretty much anything and everything. Because obviously back then, remember, you had to be able to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
You got a shot, or you got a sequence, or you got something to work on. You had to basically do the full thing yourself, which I kind of miss. Everything's now departmentalized and
you got your horse blinkers on, and you just got to look right ahead and do your one little wheel.
Exactly, and it's kind of I miss doing that. Being able to just tackle tackle a sequence from start to finish, independently. And I really wish that it was taught a lot more than what it could be. So I think about that time, that it was I think 3D Lover had just started, and you did some stuff with that.
Yeah, with
Pedja.
No, it.
Yeah.
I had a look. I've from time to time I've taken a look at it, and it's still been around, but I think it's finally kicked the bucket. I'm trying to reach over my laptop to have a look. Either way, it's not really what it was. Basically 3D Lover is like you had a few of those websites, like 3D Cafe was another like really fucking awesome one.
And that was it. Yeah, they had a load of model work on there and everything. You could upload all your stuff to, and people were downloading assets. They had a lot of sci-fi stuff, kit bashed, Star Wars models on there. Some guy did a Falcon on there. I remember there was a 3DS file of that. We used to dick around with on it. Cool. So that was cool. But I think about that time, I think we first started Chinwagon. I think it was on the Ngram Max list, one of the mailing lists.
Yeah, probably.
So that was around about what, 98?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'd say about then. Like, I started getting kind of a bit more active around 97, 98. So yeah, I started to look at 3D Lover, and yeah, the cover image is from 2002. Tobias Schmidt, who is this German kid, he was about 16 and wanted to get into he wanted to get into 3D, and he had you remember Willie Hammis, who was another guy on there, or the Maxa. He was a friend of him, and both of us were kind of mentoring this kid. So it's just funny, like, seeing his image, because like it's really sad. Basically, he's one of those people that had so much talent, but his dad obviously was like, "Hey, you should get a real job and go into architecture instead of like doing this 3D stuff." So he ended up like dropping out. So I was just looking at his work, and I guess it probably was one of the last things he ever did before he went straight into architecture.
Yeah, there was a few I met, along the way who've done something like that. Either got rejected by the game, or they decided, you know what, I'm going to do something else. One guy I know who was really, really good journalist. He was from London, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. For the life of me, his name escapes me. But he went out and went into what was it? Repairing vintage motorcycles.
Wow.
It's like complete, flip of the coin kind of thing. It's like, no, I want to do this now. It's like, all right, have fun, waste of talent, but okie dokie.
Yeah. It's
and that is cool. It's cool. It's like, you kind of look back every now and then and go, I've spent God knows how many years doing this. Am I further along than I was before? Like 10 years ago? Am I just stagnating kind of thing? It's one of those, I need to work on more shots. I mean, running the studio, I've taken a kind of conscientious decision not to work on as many shots as I used to, because obviously I've got to trade one up and QC shots and QC workflow and pipelines and all that kind of stuff. And I get enjoyment from doing that, but every now and then you're like, oh man, I really want to work on that thing they're doing.
Yep.
Seriously. And I try not to micromanage. I'll give advice and stuff to the guys and what have you, but I'm there just clambering at the bit, and I was, oh man, I really want to work on that thing.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
In this first one we did, there was a large waterfall episode that we had that took around about, I think it was around about a year we spent for this opening sequence, plus there's like a climb sequence, like a song, like a climb sequence. For those of you who are not kind of any experience of Indian films, there's you got your general story arc, you got your sub arcs, and then you've got songs interjected. Sometimes the songs are just for show and tell. They're item numbers, i.e., they have nothing to do with the song, nothing to do with the film whatsoever, or they're plot development pieces. And this was a plot development piece. So this guy's got to get from the bottom of this big ass waterfall to the top, and there's different stages along the way, different obstacles and so on. So this waterfall itself was around, well, when we sized it up, we blocked it for a bunch of wide shots, and we were considering doing sim work for it, for entire top to bottom and breaking it up. And the entire height was something like around about 1.5 kilometers.
Wow.
So, well, it's just going to be spray. By the time you get like around about 50 meters down, it's just going to be spray. So you're not going to see a damn thing. So we ended up breaking it up into stages. And in one particular shot, which was a low angle one, this female character looks up this female protagonist looks up and sees the top of this waterfall where she's just come from. It's right at the beginning of the film. And we measured the actual height of the geometry that we needed to do a sim work on it to get that exact angle, and it was over 5 kilometers. So it was like, yeah, we're not going to be able to do that. It's not physically possible, really, to be able to sim that much with that much detail and that much, disk space, really.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, on that particular shot and a bunch of other ones, we were banging our heads against the wall. The effects guys were banging their heads as well. We were managing to churn out the other stuff, all the proximity water sims that we need to do, even like the big kind of torrent lake stuff. And they were like, "Oh man, this is killing us. It's actually killing us." So at that point, I managed to get my head back into it. I managed to.
You rolled up your sleeves and it's like, "I'll do it."
Yeah, exactly. It's like, right, you guys deal with the production planning. You guys deal with the scheduling. You guys deal with this QC, that QC, and that QC. I'm going to be busy for about 3 weeks. So I went old school. I fired up Afterburn.
Oh man!
And it worked.
Yeah.
Because just the sheer amount of volume, it was just basically puffs and spray and all that. So I designed like around about 4 interacting Afterburn systems, just bog standard P-flow drops, and it's because obviously it's all about the emission.
Yep.
You get the right, and you've pretty much nailed it straight off. Then it's just analysing the breakups as it goes down. It does that after this much distance, it does that after that much distance, and so on, and then so on and so on. So I designed all these systems which would fade in, fade out, roll in a certain orientation, and blah blah blah, and just looked at the entire thing based on the shot, and it ended up working. You look at it and it's like, well, yeah, I could have spent another maybe 2 months on it. I'd love to have done a shitload more work on the thing, but 3 weeks was all I had. So
were you rendering with the Octane shader or going Raymarcher?
No, Raymarcher.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because occasionally I'll jump on projects and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna dig up Afterburn just for this one little thing, and it works. It's still a fantastic plugin. However, rendering is still as painful as it was back then, and it's kind of surprising just because like with Fume and everything else, like one voxel is one voxel. It doesn't have multiple things layering over each other, whereas with that you're layering so much shit over each other that it really bogs down. And yeah, rendering it out just gets so slow.
It still is. I mean, I was again doing the old trick of like rendering volumes out at 3/4 res.
All right.
We're doing everything out at 3K, and thankfully I didn't need mats to interact with.
Yep.
So
otherwise you have to.
But the pain in the backside was that I lit it for one side and it looked good, and then I thought, right, okay, I'll just enable the rest of the systems on this side. So I designed it for one flow, did the multiple, populated the entire thing up, and then chucked it out, and then the entire thing was just totally burning on one side. So I actually ended up having to have 2 separate lighting systems, one for one side because it was like in a horseshoe shape almost.
Yep.
One side it was working fine, where it was lit in slight suggestion, and then the other side, the entire thing just burnt out like, oh, crap.
So you're lighting it like you would on set. In other words, nothing's lit naturally. It's 1,000 lights right behind it.
Yeah, it was dead annoying. But yeah, it ended up. I mean, I had some other issues with it, like for some unknown reason, it was some machines on the farm were just popping it, like it would some parts of the system would render on one particular system, or 5 of them out of the farm that we had. It's like it was kind of weird, but ended up coming out okay. We just ended up going through each farm. No. You worked. Okay, you can do it.
So with that, I guess you're gonna miss getting on the box. I mean, what are you typically doing most of the time? Just more bidding and overseeing everyone else?
No, not so much as the bidding. We've got the GANs guys. We've got a production team to do that. So generally, kind of PR stuff, QCing the pipeline, QCing the shots. We've got production for each department. We've kind of segregated it. Originally, we had as a number of production members who were overseeing the entire studio, and we thought, okay, this one, because we had some issues ensuring that everybody was delivering and so on. So we thought, right, okay, we'll split the production team up into departmentalized management,
right.
which seems to be one guy overseeing the entire Light Badger. He's doing a great job to maintain all these chaps to ensure that everything gets delivered on time. Within each department. So for me, primarily what I'm doing is say overseeing the QC, getting my head into some areas of development and advising the artists and getting them up to the level as what we need to have for the next sets of shots that we have for the second part.
Right.
So I mean, case in point, also a lot of supervision work that we tend to do on set as well, and also I'm trying to drive this app that we've been developing for data logging. So that thing itself has been like a pet project that we've had on the side for the last few years or so. I think we designed it. When was it? I designed it around about 2009. General kind of rough notes, general kind of workflow and so on for it. And then it wasn't until around about 3 years back that we started actually coding the thing. And at that point, it was like it was never going to go to market. It was one of those things that we're just going to keep it in house. Primarily because with all the assets, as you know, when you're on set, you can just collate so much data, and sitting and just going through every single thing. At the end of it, that those bunch of images relate to that shot, those bunch of images relate to that shot, that HDR's for that one, that 360s for that, blah 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 blah. It's a lot of work when you get back to the studio to dump everything in the right folder and to collate everything and make sure everybody knows where everything is. So we designed this one thing to cut out all that shit, really. And that was its primary purpose, so that the confirmation guys that we had didn't spend time. And for one scene, it was taking like about a week. It's like 10-minute scene with all the reference images and everything else. Right. It was taking like a week to scan all the paper stuff, label that, dump that in the folder, label the folder, dump source the relevant images, dump them in the right location as well. All the reference videos to put them in the location as well. And it was just taking so much time. So we thought, right, we'll try and automate as much as possible. And I'm all for automation. I don't believe in having to. Once you've entered something, you shouldn't have to enter it again. There's no need to. Yep. So it's like having middle management. There's no point. You just basically communicating one thing to another. So we designed the system to automate all this kind of stuff, and it worked perfectly fine. Then someone had the bloody brainstorm of, right, all right, let's put this out to public. And then the entire bloody thing changed, because we're like, well, if we're putting it out to public, then it's got to be decent.
Yeah, it means you're going to have to grow your team a lot more exponentially and have a shitload more overhead just to handle that side of it.
Well, it's more along the lines of like, it needs to look decent. It should be stable as hell, because obviously the one good thing that you've got, with a paper log sheet is that you can drop it a million bloody times and it won't break. So if you're logging everything digitally on like an iOS device or something like that, if you drop it, you're buggered. Your data's gone, all your reference images are gone, the full lot, so you're pretty screwed. So we designed a method to be able to sync that up with a neighboring device, either through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, ad hoc or whatever. So that, in essence, you had a backup, but also allowed for two separate individuals or more to collaborate on the same sheet. So you had one guy doing one reference set of videos, another guy doing another set, and so on and so on. So I've been kind of driving that, about 25% of my time to try and make sure that, we're using it live on set, and where there's problems, I'm feeding back to the developers. And it's, like I say, a bit of a pet project.
Yeah.
It's something that I've put a fair amount of time in, but, and it's one of those things that, I'm enjoying doing that. I have no freaking idea whatsoever how to code an iOS system. Not a Scooby. Not mate. But, it's because I did a lot of multimedia back in the day, again, kind of going full circle.
Yeah.
UI design and ergonomics is kind of like a pet peeve. It's like going back to the 3D World stuff. Like, one thing really, really pissed me off back in the day when I used to review stuff was when a product was absolutely amazing, but the UI sucked ass.
Yeah.
It's like, man, this could be absolutely awesome. There was one Russian facial tracking system. I forget the name. It was like, it used to build the head, it used to do all the lip syncing work. It's either facial tracking or it works from an audio track. It used to automatically.
Magpie or?
No, I think it was Face Station.
Okay.
It was one for Face Station, and they released one version, and I met up with the developers at some show in London, and They gave me a copy of it. I went away and had a look at it, and I just phoned them up and said, "Man, you don't want me to review this? Seriously, I can't review it. I can't give it a good mark. I know how much work you've done on this. This is the thing. I know what you've done. The problem is, it was like they'd shoved the entire UI into a Scrabble bag, shook it around, tipped it out, and went, yeah, no, dude." So it was like, it could have been absolutely amazing, but because the UI was holding it back, it made it difficult to work. So they went away, they reworked it, completely unbeknownst to me, and then resubmitted it, and it was freaking amazing. They went through the workflow, they redesigned the thing, and just purely down to UI. Feature set hadn't changed, but they reworked the UI, and it was great. It really, really did the job.
The UI is everything. Sorry to cut you off. I was just gonna say, if you look at Nuke, when that officially went commercial with when DD released it back in 2003. For everyone who grew up on Nuke, it made sense, but I think for a lot of other people, it was just pretty alienating.
Oh God, yeah, it was like extracting the eyeball with a spoon. I went from 3D Studio DOS to, and the first company I worked at, they used Lightwave.
Right.
And it was like, two separate programs?
I'm just going to interrupt and say, because I was talking about this recently, about, I don't know why, but it was always back in the day, it would always be the Lightwave people that seemed to bash everyone else. And I really would always get flack for, if you look at Max's video post, it has all these plugins you put in. And I don't know, I had one guy in particular always saying, he would torment me and message me on, ICQ, if you remember that, and be like, ha ha ha, your glow is a plugin and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, I keep my mouth shut about everything, but you have to load modeler.exe and lightwave3d.exe. Give me a fucking break, okay? You got separate programs for your shit.
We really shouldn't say that, because the way that Tom designed 3D Studio DOS was actually about 4 separate programs, with a skin.
Well, yeah, you had the Shaper, Lofter, 3D editor, Keyframer, material editor, and then you had the KPX, IPass routines, and all that shit.
Yeah. The thing is, there was a ton of plugins for Lightwave. I remember we actually had an absolute shitload of this.
You had Hypervoxel, a few other ones that were pretty cool.
The one thing, it took me a while to get my head into it. And I couldn't feel productive. I couldn't feel productive using it. It's no disrespect to anybody who does use it, but I just simply couldn't get my head around the UI. And this was Lightwave 4, I think. Mm-hmm. So it was 97 or something. And right. My productivity is 20%, 25% easily. And this was me when I was totally crap. I'm not saying I'm great now, but I was.
Back when I was crap. No.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the executive decision. I'm no way in my standing at that company. I was like, look, you guys are resellers for 3D Studio. This was let's say about 97-ish. Mm-hmm. They had a couple of seats of 3D Studio 4 DOS. They had a seat of Max 1 and an upgrade disk of 1.1, I think it was at the time. Mm-hmm. So I went, right, you know what, I'm going to bung 3D Studio 4 on there. And that's what I did. So I ended up working I was the only guy in the entire company who worked with 3D Studio.
Yeah.
And then, I fired up Max 1 for the first time when, no. Closed it.
I was the same way. My first big gig was on Half-Life, and I would model everything in Max, but I would go back to animating in DOS just because I didn't realize till later, for some reason, taking it into DOS and then bringing it back into Max to export it out, because Half-Life stuff was all done in Max. It was causing some big issues with the geometry, bringing it in and out again. But I just liked the I was used to the 3D Studio DOS editor because it had the world keys, and I was doing a lot of mechanical animation, so it was just a lot easier to kind of insert keys for everything and offset.
Yeah, I finally managed to get into Max. I think it was in version 1.2 when that came out. That was the more stable version of that lot. Remember, 2 came out. I shifted.
Yeah, 1.2 was the most stable. Then it went 2, then 2.5.
2 was a ball ache, absolute ball. And 2.5 came out, and I still to date think that was the best one.
Max 3 had some pretty cool shit coming into it, because Max 2 had FFDs. It had so much, it had 1,000 features at the time. I remember them boasting about that.
Beast by three I think was good. Yeah, that was a good call. But 3 was unstable as shit.
Yeah.
It was the net. I think it was like 3.1 or 3.5 or something like that. Next one that came out.
Yeah, it wasn't a 3.5. It was 3.1. I remember they rewrote the renderer, and I remember their way of like proving it, like as if people wouldn't believe them or something, was like, look, you can see the vertical line, so therefore we have rewritten it, like as if they're just going to say it or something.
Is that on 3.1 or 3, they brought in the RNO blend shader, they brought in the fall off maps and all that kind of stuff. So that was not great in the shaders for sure. But honestly, I liked 2.5 because of just at that particular point in time, the systems that we were using at the company I was working on at the time, it seemed even now like the most stable. And this was like Windows NT,
4.
Like NT4. It was like I think we had like 256 mega memory and all that kind of stuff. It's still I could do a fair load on that thing.
Right.
It was I was, punching above my weight on it, but it kind of worked out. And it wasn't until I think I got on the beta, which was Max 4. I think Max 4 got
Magma was the beta. Because I just remember Discrete was acquired by Autodesk at the time. That was Max 3 was the first one to go out through. Actually, I think Max 3 was still Kinetics. Max 4 was Discrete, and I remember the beta name was Magma, and I was really hoping that they were gonna like make that the new naming convention, because like you had Flame, Inferno, Hal, and Henry Smoke. Magma would have been cool for the 3D one.
I think 3 was under the Discrete branding. So I do remember being at one company around 2000, and me and my mate Chris, who were like big Max guys, and we like avid followers of what was going on kind of thing, and they bought Discrete at that point. I was still there, so it would have been during the Max 2.5 cycle. I think that happened.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but and we just like stood up in the office going, woo! It's like now we feel justified. There was one guy, what's his name? Oh, he did the Maximum Film site. Crying out loud.
What website did he do?
There was a website he had called Maxim Film.
Okay. Yeah. Shit. Was it Frank DeLeese or Fred Ruff? One of those guys?
No. He's a London boy.
Kieran Helton?
That's it. Yeah.
I still remember Kieran being like a hero back then, because like Max would never get used in film, and then he did. Actually, you're right. It was Kieran, because he did Black Hawk Down in Max and at NPC.
Brando was the first guy to make it, and he did it in Armageddon.
Yep.
Yeah, so just that one shot with Afterburn, the top-down shot of the two shuttles lifting it up, I just saw that. I just sort of wet myself. I thought, I'm justified now. I have not wasted so many years in my career. I have not wasted all this time learning this piece of crap. So I don't have to change the frigging Maya. Thank you. Cheers. It just totally justified my existence, man.
It was pretty interesting back then, because like Max definitely was the underdog, where I was actually thinking about this the other day. I don't know why. Oh, actually I do know why. I was doing a shoot, and there's a lot of buildings, and I was thinking about, instead of like match moving the buildings 100%, why not just do them digitally? And I remembered Truman back in like the movie with what's his face? God damn it. Ace Ventura, Jim Carrey. So the Truman Show, that movie, like I remember they used Max for that to do like a bunch of set extensions. So they would just build the bottom of all the buildings, and they just do everything else in 3D. And I don't know why, but it popped in my head the other day. I was just like, back then, even which was like the 97, 98, there were a few movies using it, not many.
Yeah, I mean, there was Lost in Space came out, and that's one that
I was just thinking about that as well, because a lot of that was Lightwave though, but there was that one sequence Delise did.
It was probably Lightwave that was done at Magic Camera before they came to Mill, and it was I think Kieran did.
It's Frank DeLeese that did that shot. You're talking about the tunnel that was all rendered in Max 2.
Yeah,
and I think it was like Raygun or one of those renderers was doing it all.
Yeah, so he did the launch sequence on it, and then Luminac. Then the rest of it was a Lightwave job.
Mm-hmm.
But that was for the opening battle that was done for those two.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about the opening sequence as well. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. So another mate of mine, Alan Marks, also worked on that sequence as well. And I tried to get Al across for suit work on this one, because for one reason or another he didn't manage to get across for the suit on the second film.
Mm-hmm.
So I've tried to lumber in half a dozen people that I know on that second one. So you might get a call, mate. Come across and give us a hand, mate.
So, but yeah, it was kind of funny. I worked at a Maya studio for a very long time, and I would have like this old shitty copy of Max and Afterburn, and I was doing like 99% of all their VFX work in that. And like eventually I did make the switch to Maya just because, you know,
cross the dogs.
Well,
bastard. I thought you were one of us.
Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, I'll use whatever's like good, you know what I mean? I don't have any loyalties, and I think that's always like a really stupid point, is like, no, I'm going to stick with this because I you know, if your reasons are justified by, you know, it's us versus them or some BS like that, then it doesn't make sense.
The thing, back then it was always like the Max Pro versus, you know, the 3D software wars.
Exactly, yeah.
That was always kind of like, you know, shits and giggles.
But I love Maya. Like, Maya's interface was awesome. Like, it's really powerful, but you could script particles, which Max you couldn't at the time. So
I never really got into it. That's the thing. It's one of those things that I always wish that I had. I mean, I will sit down at some point and get my teeth into it, and also more into Houdini than I have. That's my Houdini knowledge is like, jack shit, pretty much. Yeah. So, I mean, I can, you know, everything, that's not a problem. But actually physically hands-on on it, I mean, I did digital electronics at uni. I know about the Voltasofts and all that kind of stuff. I know operators and all that kind of crap. But the things actually physically, you know, hands-on, I need to learn the UI. Again, just get my teeth into that and go and kind of full circle again. But it's one of those things that I always wish that I got more in depth with, you know, with Maya, and getting more in depth with Houdini and stuff. But, you know, back in the day, you know, to get more of a head start. But it's just been, you know, lack of time. You know, one thing's led to another, one thing, you know, snowballed onto another thing, and then this other thing kicked off and shit. And it's like, well, just didn't have time to do it. It's like character animation. I'd love to actually be able to, you know, be really frigging good at you know, character animation. Again, I can direct it.
Mm-hmm.
Not a problem. I know where the problems are. I know where the, you know, if there's an issue with the skin, if there's an issue with the loops, issue with the rig, you know, all that kind of stuff. But actually, physically, you put me in front of a system and say, right, rig that. I'd be like, I've got guys to do that, dude.
Give me Golem. You know, you got 5 minutes. Go for it.
I just don't have the, you know, I tried it back in, I don't know, it must have been about 98, 99. I did one little kind of animated character.
You use Character Studio. Just put the footsteps down, hit a button, done.
Terrible. I've still got all my old reels. I'll post them at one time just for a laugh.
I googled you earlier, and I noticed you got a 2009 reel. I'm kind of curious to watch. I noticed you got like a 2009 reel.
Yeah, again, two reasons. Number one, lazy. Number two, not had time. I mean, this is the thing. Any kind of shit that I've done really has been, you know, with and for the company. So anything there, it goes into that. And me physically handling shots, I mean, the most kind of batch of shots that I worked on must have been about 3 years back. Apart from this, you know, this recent one when I've actually managed to get hands-on some because of, you know, some technicalities. But prior to that, I'd say it was about 3 years back. So as far as me personally having to, you know, sit on shots and actually having material for reels is actually physically hands-on, there ain't a great deal. You know, there isn't a great, you know, openly admit it. The fact that it's primarily because I've been souping. And, you know, when it comes to suit work, it's a case of this is the thing, how do you create a soup reel?
Well, you can. I mean, you just got to keep them separate. I mean, basically, when you get to the point where you start supervising, you got to basically build a reel where you're explaining, you know, what you did on the shots, and it is pretty similar. It's just, I don't know. For me, I always have an issue doing that because, like, even my reel, there's plenty of shit I souped, but I still did hands-on stuff on it, just because I still have that kind of imposter syndrome where I'm like, I didn't physically do the shots, even though you supervised the whole sequence and you're responsible for 20 people. You know, I think both of us kind of feel that way, where it's like, you know, you want to show what you actually did. and you can't measure that too well, other than to show, these are the sequences, and you've seen it on TV, so I must have done my job because it managed to get done. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I think I might retire the site at some point. I mean, the education system on there is kind of dead at the moment. I need to re-update all the links and everything like that. I passed a load of stuff across to my credit server at 3D Plus, and I think they're up there. I'm not sure. I'm not sure 100%, but I just literally one time I had like, Christ, it must have been about, I don't know, 3 years worth of papers, because all the stuff I wrote for 3D World, I had an agreement with them, gentleman's agreement, glorified handshake kind of thing.
Yep.
That anything that I published there, as long as it was over like a month old, I could dump on the site, as long as I didn't sell it.
Yep.
As long as I didn't sell it, I could dish it up there on the site, because chances are they'd update it on their site as well, and so on. So I thought, right, okay, well, I'll bung it up there, because it's just going to sit on my disk doing nothing. So someone may as well, get some use out of it. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up, anytime there was a new, paper that I wrote or what have you, I'd dump it up there. And then I got busy as heck with the company, and just simply didn't have time to update the thing. So the last time I checked before I stopped writing for them, which was around 2010, I had like around 3.5 years worth of papers, of which there's, so there's like 13 a year, plus any other kind of additional tutorial. So, you do the maths, because my stuff. So I at that point, I think Chris was saying, you got any content or anything? I was like, yeah, there you go. Here's everything.
Here's a decade of stuff. Enjoy.
Yeah, it's all the shit, mate. You sort it out. Bye.
Yep.
That's kind of what I did. Yeah. So he's got everything there. I hope he's still got it. I think I've got copies somewhere. If not, I can go on the server in the office. The guys in the office.
That's right. That's
cool.
No,
I just kind of like the magazine. Yeah, it's still going, and it was great when it started out, because I don't get starstruck by, you work with certain people, obviously, the actors and the directors and what have you. Certain people, obviously, you get starstruck by certain people. But I do by, my peers, guys in the game, like, let's say like Brando and Yusen and a bunch of guys at Disney, and a few mates at ILM, a few mates at Pixar who I'm good friends with, and their work's freaking amazing kind of thing. So they're the rock stars. They're the guys I'm looked up to. They're the guys I'm starstruck by, not by talentless stuff. So I was looking to shift down to the southwest England. I was living in kind of like northeast London at the time, and I was looking to shift down to southwest England. I applied to Future Publishing, to Computer Art magazine, because they had an advert for a staff writer, and I sent my shit across, and got a letter back saying, nah, thanks anyway. 2-3 days later, I get a call from a guy called Garrett Webster, and it was him who got me that. And from him, it kind of escalated. So he's the guy who kind of like set the ball roll. Lovely chap. He's giant. He's massive. He's like 6'5" or whatever the heck he is. He's mutant. Lovely. And he was, I think he was a deputy editor on Computer Arts at the time, and he was starting 3D World as a side venture. And he phones me up and says, right, seen your stuff, right, cheers. He says, I've got this one chap, he's writing a piece for me on Max, and it's 50 Max tips. Okay, he's let me down, or he's going to let me down in about a couple of days if he's late with content. So if he doesn't get back to me in a couple of days, can you do it? I'll pay you, X amount. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, no problems. And hung the phone up. I was like, fuck, do I know 50 Max tips? What's open the thing and click the thing, and that it doesn't crash if you do this, it will crash if you do this. And I'm like, kind of back in my brain. So I met him back and like, dude, I'm on like 30 and I'm struggling here, okay? He goes, I tell you what, here's the number of a guy who might be able to help. And it was Frank.
Oh, great.
So I phoned up Frank DeLees, and I was just like, man, you're a fucking rock star. Seriously, I was literally like, I'd met some big A-list celebrity kind of thing. So this guy was like, you did one of the first Max shots in the time. just totally overwhelmed. And we chatted for like about an hour or so. We shot the shit. We went through, kind of 10, 20 or so, and published the thing, and yeah, it came all right. And that kind of led on to doing this stuff for the mag on a regular basis, kind of thing.
That's
and
cool.
it was all because of, like I say, all because of Garrick and all because of Frank, putting his 2p's worth in, and very, very, very valuable 2p's of work, who managed to make me sound less of a tit than I actually was. Because otherwise it'd be like, I mean, if anyone goes on the site and everything, if it's still there, there was a section. The section was the first one I ever wrote, and one of them is some unbeknownst random features that I think is still there, like strokes. Have you ever used strokes?
Good.
That's not
Yeah.
That's not a question, by the way.
Well, let me just say this. I feel like one thing Max has been cursed with. Okay, two things. Max has been cursed with the fact that it doesn't ever get rid of stuff. It's very rare. So, like, for the longest time, even Max 1 dynamics were still in there, where, you could have a cube bounce onto the ground, and it would sit on the ground, and if it was like a 300 frame animation, the cube would sit on the ground, start to vibrate, and eventually take off like a rocket, just that unstable. And the other thing is, like, Max has been kind of plagued with the fact that it tried to be cross-compatible with DOS, and there's a lot of things wrong with the DOS version, like XYZ obviously being one of them, which more was a CAD thing, but there's a lot of bad habits that are still around 20 years later because of that.
Right, I still think the modelling top down and then you extrude up, I still think that is the right way, and I will take that to my grave. Mm-hmm. No, everyone else is bloody wrong. Right, carry on.
But, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, yeah, it's just, for me, I've always kind of felt like that's one of the downsides, is the fact that there has been a lot of bad habits that it's kept for such a long time, and it for a long time would rarely retire stuff, because if you get rid of a plugin, people are going to complain, oh, I can't use this time around, and so there is a lot of stuff in there that, Max Nerbs, what's that?
They did get rid of some. Well, I don't say get rid of, they hid stuff, like, for example, they earmarked a few features which were memory hubs. I do remember somewhere in I think it was the Max 9 or 2008 development cycle, they hid a bunch of stuff, like, for example, the planet map. The planet map itself was, it was hidden totally. So my wife's not very happy because I've just finished the wine.
You gotta have more than one bottle lying around, right?
Yeah, I've just kind of like sucked the entire thing. It's just like, it's wine. Let it breathe. It's dead. Drink it. I know it's not beer. I'm getting pictures already. Married since October. I'm already getting it. And yes, dear. I don't know. Hang on. My dead is out, mate.
So we'll go through a few things. We won't go on for too much longer, but like I was just kind of curious for you, I guess, when you made your transition from the UK to India, like, what was that like for you? Like, obviously, it's very different culture, as well as, like, industry-wise, it's quite different as well.
Well, how long you got? So, long story short, I'll try. Anybody who knows me, when I say that, it normally ends up being long. It was tough. When I first came here, I had a complete nervous breakdown, to be frank. I landed here. I was excited to come initially because I'd always wanted to kind of visit this side of the pond, and taking the culture to do the touristy thing and everything. Being British, like our most common food consumed is Indian. So we're 90% curry, really, to be honest. So the rest of the 10% is lager, or vice versa. So it's kind of in our DNA. But I came here on my TARD in, I think it was like Valentine's Day 2009. I even remember it the date. And I don't know if it was jet lag or what, and I literally had they shipped me into this hotel, production put me in this hotel, and I literally, like, complete realization of, like, Christ, you're on the other side of the planet, you don't know anybody, what the living hell are you doing here? Mm-hmm. I've told this story a few times on what episode, so anybody who hears this won't come as too much of a surprise, but yeah, I just literally kind of, like, I was a wreck, man, seriously. Imagine, like, 115 kilo, blubbery white guy in a hotel room somewhere in Hyderabad. I was completely not a bloody state. But finally, got into work the following day, got into work, met the director, met the production, got into shots and everything, and I was okay. It took some time to get into it, but I was all right. The main thing that I had issues with was principally that the way that things do over here. Like, for example, you say to someone, okay, I'm going to meet you here at such and such time, like 3 in the afternoon, so I meet at 3 in the afternoon or something, and everybody's late or they're early, the actual, hit the 3 o'clock appointment, it doesn't really happen. So I'm being a Brit, I'm quite a stickler for timekeeping.
You're very punctual.
You have to be. It's kind of, like I say, it's how I was brought up, and it's in my nature kind of thing. I'm a bit of an ass for that. Even if I'm like 2 minutes late, I'll phone up. If I know I'm going to be 2 minutes late, I'll phone up in advance and say, dude, I'm going to be 2 minutes late. Otherwise you think I'll stud you up, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things. But over here, that was kind of most frustrating thing for me. Even like arranging the cable guy to come round at 4 in the afternoon, and he turns up at freaking 7, and he's like,
"That's worldwide, dude. That's worldwide."
That's not. It just, oh man, it frustrates the crap out of me.
Yeah.
So anywho, now that I understand that, okay, the guy says, okay, right, we'll meet at 3. That means 3 for 4, or 3 for 5, kind of thing. So any time within that 2-hour bracket, I can plan. As long as I can plan, I can execute. If I can execute, I can do my shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me some time to get used to that. But now, when someone says something like, okay, it's going to take so much, I know where the buffer's going to be, and I can plan accordingly for it. And that's how we've managed to, keep things running, and we can deliver, and stuff gets done on time as to what we communicate to, the client. So that, aside from traffic being completely utterly mental, I mean, I'm driving here now. I've been driving here for like almost 3 years, and when I go back home, it's I have to switch my brain back, which is kind of difficult because we both drive on the same side.
But one, you're very aggressive, whereas the other one, you got to be a bit more courteous to people around you, I'm sure.
That's the thing. This is kind of a funny thing. Flashing a headlight in the UK normally means, come through. I'm letting you through. Because nobody flashes the headlights over there, really, unless they're, right up your arse being aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got staggered cars, for example, you both arrive at the same time, and, one of you's got to go first. Flashing your lights at somebody means, no, come through, please. Over here, it's like, no, I'm coming through, shift, move, which normally is a bit of a slanging match between, when you're driving a car and a truck.
Mm-hmm.
So if the truck's coming towards you, it's like, you'll flash first, and he'll flash, and you'll flash, and he'll flash, and you'll flash, and he'll flash, then you'll just move because you're not going to win.
Right.
It's like, and, it's anyone who's over here will kind of like, yep, that's kind of right. But it's one of these things that you have to kind of experience just to take it into context. And it's cool. I love the place. I wouldn't have married into it if I hadn't, kind of thing. And I didn't think I'd be here for as long as I have. I thought, maximum couple of years. That's it. And then shift off somewhere else and what have you. But it's oh my God, look at my watch. It's like, oh, I've been here for 7 years now.
Wow. And sorry,
it just ending.
Well, so when you first came over, you were saying that you had a bit of a breakdown, just kind of adjusting to it all. Like initially, when you came over, were you just going over for like a small amount of time, or was it for like, or did you know that you were going to be over for quite a while?
No. I mean, when I first came over, it was just to work on one feature, and I knew there was like a finite time. It's like, okay, I've just got 3 months here. That's it, and then I'm off. I'm popping back.
Right.
Again, going like long story short, again, I had issues with my visa coming back because the guy who wrote the bloody thing in the UK, because they penciled in at the bottom, employed by such and such company, which was a production in Chennai and not Hyderabad, where the original offer letter was actually located. So I go to the foreign registration place where you have to do, if you're on an employment visa, you have to register with the cops, do everything, everything's white, no bullshit. Got all that done. I get to the airport to leave, and the guy, I'm like, I'm done, I'm going home, lovely, lovely, lovely. It's like, 1st of April or something like that. And the guy looks at my passport, looks at my visa, looks at my offer letter, looks at my residential permit and goes, no, you're not flying. And I'm like, ha, what?
Mm-hmm.
No, duty free, where the cigarettes and the alcohol are back there. That's it. That bit is where I want to go, mate. And he's like, no, you can't fly. And the reason why I can fly is because the guy in the UK at the consulate or the visa agency, written down, employed by this company with the Chennai branch and not the local branch, which is Hyderabad. Because at the bottom of the letter, it said offices in Chennai, Hyderabad, Mumbai, blah, blah, blah. And he'd taken the first one because it was the first letter date. As a result, I was buggered. So I had to spend another week or so trying to sort all that lot out. Worked on a few more shots, out of just for shits and giggles. And then flew back like a week later or so. I thought, that's it. I'm not coming back after all this. No way. I went to the States. I did some work there. I did the Red Stick Festival in Baton Rouge. I came back. I went over to Keyframe in Canada, in Niagara. Did some stuff with those guys. Great bunch of lads. Then shipped across to Wisconsin to visit my friends, Rochelle and Jim over there. Then flew back. And I think I was back for about 2 days. Got a phone call. Yeah, can you come back to India? What?
Yeah.
So Gareth wants us to come back with us some other stuff. Oh yeah, right, okay. So this was a Friday morning, I think. Hungover, sat over the Badger, and we're like, oh what? It's just too early in the morning, man. Seriously? And it's like this guy's like, can you come over Monday? I'm like, no, mate. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Not possible. No way. Not a chance now. I landed on the Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly.
So the following Jesus, man. I'm back.
And here you are 9 years later.
Yeah, but that was the thing. And again, I stayed there for like about a month, 2 months or something like that. And then partway through the remainder of that year, which was 2009, one of the guys who I worked with on this feature, he's like, well, me, you, and this other chap, we work well together, so how about we form a company? And I didn't think really initially it'd go anywhere. I thought that it was, it's just, because I've heard this kind of stuff before from people over in the UK and whatnot. You should do this, it'll be great, and little. And I never thought anything would move. And literally within a week, it lined up meetings, it lined up discussions, it lined up investments and everything. It's like, holy shit, this thing's moving. And the initial discussions that we had kind of fell through, so I thought that was dead. And then we found somebody else with the same investors that we have right now. And things motored along, and it came to fruition. Originally, the idea we were going to go in as contractors into various studios and train them up, and bring features in, train them up, and QC everything, and sit for the project, and then come out, get another project, go to another studio, and that kind of thing. But the model didn't work initially, purely because the problem that we were encountering is that a lot of the places over here were doing like a catch and release policy.
Okay, so in other words, like ramping up to do a project, then ramping down right after.
Yeah. And the thing is, they were not retaining the core talent. That was the accountants were looking at the numbers and going, these guys cost too much money, get rid of them. And all the good chaps were getting the flick, and they were literally they'd scatter out, not just within the city, they'd scatter into the entire country. And it's quite big. It's like, okay, this guy literally overnight he'd shift, say for example, from LA straight to freaking Chicago overnight, that much distance. So we decided at that point, well, we need to really, for us to actually make any good here, we're going to have to hire talent, and we're going to have to retain them. So that's what we decided to do. We had a chat with the investors. We decided, okay, this is the model we want to run now, because this one is not working. And they went for it. They said, yeah, okay. If you want to, it doesn't matter how much it costs and whatever. If you want to bring them in and you're going to keep them, it's going to build the name, it's going to build the brand, then go for it.
And so build consistency as well. Like that's the big thing.
So that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to, we've hired, people who are experienced with the industry, and we've also hired, freshers and group staff who we feel that, have, they can bring something to the table. They're not necessarily vanilla or anything, but they have that a little something that we looked for, and it's worked out mostly. So there have been obviously some teething issues along the way, obviously with any effect studio, as you know. But for the most part, things have gone neatly, and we've made a decent name for ourselves over the last X number of years.
Mm-hmm.
So fingers crossed, stuff's going to grow, and we've got ideas for the next kind of couple of years or so. This next 12 months at least is going to be dedicated to this one feature that we're finalising on, that we're going to be shooting.
That's great.
That's going to be pretty fun. Some of the sequences they've got in there is very, very, very interesting indeed.
What do you think are some of the big challenges of launching a studio, especially on foreign soil, where maybe you got to kind of learn the industry or how it is over there compared to where you're used to?
You go in blind pretty much. Especially when you form somewhere that you're nowhere educated within. It's not just a case of language barrier. Language barrier is one thing. Here it's not so much of an issue because the majority of people speak English anyway. Although a lot of them can't understand my accent. But the primary thing really is knowing who's who, what's what, and keeping tabs on which productions are actually doing taking the risks, or wanting to put the money into large scale one. I mean, here there are a very very small amount of large scale productions which are in development or have been developed. To be honest, I'm in we're in the Telugu industry, which is lovely called Tollywood, which is based in Hyderabad, which is like right in the center of the country, which is technically, as far as budgeting is concerned, it's like second to the main industry, which is up in Bombay. That can be attributed to one's London, the other one's somewhere else, kind of thing. So you get the kind of cliqueiness up in Bombay and stuff, and trying to, us being in Hyderabad, trying to break into Bombay is just like a studio in Birmingham trying to break into
London.
It's kind of geography has a large weight to play in it, so you got to kind of make sure you get yourself set up in the right location.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing really though is sourcing the talent. Actually, the educational establishments which are based here within the country. Obviously, I'm not sure what it's like. I know what it's like in the UK, obviously. I know what it's like in the US because it's moderation work. But elsewhere in the world, I'm not 100%. But over here, they churn out around about several thousand students per year collectively, and it's big business.
Right.
It's big business, and the problem is that we encounter is when I'm reviewing show reels, is that everyone's a carbon copy. That's the biggest disappointment for me. There are a few schools over here which they encourage creativity. They encourage people thinking outside the box. Don't just follow these rules. Don't just follow these guides. Go out. Do your own thing. Take what we've taught you, adapt it, learn from it, and do your own thing. They encourage that creativity. But other ones, you can tell that some of the lecturers, they're just going through the motions themselves.
Yeah.
And as a result, the students are only going through the motions as well because it just rubs off on them.
Yeah.
So when we get reels through, I can literally stack up in a pile, without even looking at the resumes or looking at, any kind of notes on CDs or pen drives or anything. I know for a fact, you're from that school, you're from that school, you're from that school, you're from that school. I can just stack them up. And it shouldn't be like that. That's the thing. It's art, for Christ's sake. You've got to be artistic. Otherwise you're just doing another freaking IT job, man. Seriously, you may as well just go and do something else. If you're not treating it as art,
that's right.
Then do something else, because you're never going to develop. You're never going to get better than what you are now. It doesn't matter, what I tell you or whatever your peers tell you or anybody else in the game tells you. You're just going to be just as good as you are right now, because you don't want to develop. The only way that you're going to develop is if you trying to force yourself for a promotion, and you'll learn that skill and stick with it, and push for the next one. And that's what we've tried to encourage. We've tried to encourage the guys to aspire to get to the next stage and to push themselves and to push each other. It's worked sometimes. It's ended in arguments in other times. I've had arguments with some of the guys as to why things are working or why they're not working in some areas and what have you. Sometimes it's been my way of teaching people. It's been my way of trying to get them to develop, to see where things have gone right and gone wrong, or other areas it's been where they've screwed up or what have you. So, it's a learning experience for everyone. And that has been, I think, the biggest challenge, trying to communicate the fact that everything that they've been taught previously, e.g. either from their peers or from their teachers or whatever throughout their lives, of like, don't raise your hand, don't get into trouble,
don't ask questions.
Yeah, don't ask questions, that kind of thing. I want you to. If I've screwed up, say I've screwed up, I have no problem with you telling me that, because it's a learning experience for me as well.
Actually, let me just jump in real quick. I'll say that you're right. Like that's definitely a big culture thing. Like depending on where you go. Like I've had times in let's say Finland. I've given talks there a few times, and one time in particular, it was about halfway through the talk. Finally, someone mentioned, by the way, that your screen isn't showing. After like 20 minutes or whatever, and just because people are too shy to actually speak up. Whereas in Australia, 5 seconds of something not working, you'll get, mate, your fucking screen's not working. Can you fix that? So, and it is like, I think like one of the biggest things to hold you back is not being able to ask questions. It's so critical. Yeah.
It's also maybe a case of like people worrying that if they say something, they're going to get into trouble. If anything, if they don't say something, then they know for a fact that something's not right. Then not saying something, you will get in trouble for not saying something, dude, because you knew that it was wrong to start with. Yeah. So speak your mind. Make yourself known, and if something flags up, then something flags up. Like case in point, there's this one guy at our place who's he was very kind of reserved in the studio. He tries to get certain things done and so on and so on. And either if someone doesn't listen to him, he kind of goes a bit more kind of introvert, or he doesn't really speak his mind. I got him onto set. I decided, right, you know what? I'm going to give this guy a chance. I'm going to have him as an assistant on set. Totally different. Totally different personality. Oh yeah, man. It's like this guy. It's he's found his niche. He's found his forte. It's like he can say something, gets it done. He pre-plans everything. He can foresee an issue before it accounts. And it's like, why the hell are you like this in the studio, man? It's like, because when I say something here, things get done. If I say something over here, then not necessarily will do. I have to fight for it. Here, shit just gets done. It's like, okay, fine. I know where to place you now. You're there. You're working on set, dude. Are you okay with that? He's like, yeah, fine, love it, great, no problem.
That's good. And do you think you can apply some of that mentality to your studio in terms of like getting stuff done, opposed to it being more kind of this 360 circle that keeps going around? Like what he's saying that he appreciates on set is that, I guess, because things are so time sensitive there, you need some stuff done, it gets done. Like do you think introducing that into certain workflows with 3D is actually going to make things better, or is it kind of like, well, there's a reason behind it?
People say try to. Yeah, I mean, we've tried various different models within the office. I mean, I've tried a lot of Western approaches to handling the guys and managing, and either from discussions I've had with them, time, the even the hours or anything like that. I mean, we've been running. I think it was like a model that I think they did in either Switzerland or Sweden or somewhere in Scandinavia. They did, which was they're working for 6 hours only. Mm-hmm. So it's like 3 in the morning, half an hour for lunch, 3 in the afternoon. It's basically like the old school model. You come in, you have full concentration for 3 hours in the morning, you have your half an hour lunch, and then your 3 hours solidly in the afternoon, and that's it. Then you go home. Right. So we ran that model. We ran that model as a test between. We had a little, obviously, downtime, but we weren't on crunch. So we thought, right, let's give it a go. So we had 1 week where there was a vacation on I think it was a Tuesday because of some holiday here, and so we had 4 days solid. So we thought, right, we'll give it a go, and it worked. the concentration was there. Everybody was focused. It was like no cell phones, nothing. The only time you can use your cell phone is for music. That's it. Nothing on in this. No Facebook, none of this bullshit. Yep. Nothing. You don't use literally full on 3 hours solid, hard, grunt, crack a whip yourself. That kind of thing. And it was peer managed, and it worked. And it worked. Our productivity went up. Within those 4 days, our productivity was a lot better than it was the previous weeks when we were doing either 9 till 6 or 10 till 7 to do flexible hours in that respect. So we thought, okay, we'll adjust it again to UK hours. So we're doing 9 till 5:30 now. So originally, when we first formed, we were doing 10 till 8. And by 5 o'clock, everybody's just just lagging and everything. And, you can't concentrate, especially when you're doing a creative profession. You can't concentrate for that amount of time. It doesn't work. Your brain kind of switches off, or it gets distracted. You fluctuate, you deviate to something else, and I'll just check Facebook 5 minutes ago. And then later you're like, oh shit, dancing kittens, and you've not got any further.
That's right.
So it's a case of, we thought, right, let's give this a pop and see how it worked. And it worked. So once a month we do that. So the first week of the month we do the 9 till 3:30. So everyone in, bang on, 9 o'clock, which that was the toughest thing, actually making sure everybody's in, bang on 9 o'clock, if not before. You head on, 9 o'clock, your head's down, that's it. So everybody's got to be in prior to that, because otherwise people tend to fluctuate in between 9:30 or something. But no, this is strict, you've got to do it. Everybody's got to be in, you've got to be on your system, working at 9 o'clock in the morning. Yep. It sounds totalitarian regime-y sort of thing to some people, but no, that's it. So your head's in the game from the get-go. If you want a coffee and chat with your mates, then do it before then. Get in earlier and do that then.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've never understood is a lot of people, especially in VFX, you start out at 10 a.m., so everyone kind of rolls in at 10 a.m., you sit down with their coffee, they browse the web, they check their email, and it's not really until about 11 that they start to actually do some work. And I wrote those articles a while back on productivity and overtime, and
they're good.
Well, I wrote the first one initially just because I felt like the whole burning people out is not productive because people make mistakes is basically the underlying message of it all. But the thing is that surprisingly, all the studio owners, producers, soups all had my back. I was expecting a lot of people kind of being like, no, this is bullshit. Don't tell people to stand up for themselves. But everyone agreed, and there was actually a lot of really great things that came from that. But the people who didn't understand, and I expected this would happen a little bit, was a lot of artists were emailing me like, yeah, you tell them, screw workplaces and fuck those guys. And it was completely not what I was saying at all. So I ended up writing a second part, which was more about how artists should be able to get their shit together. And most of the time it's you roll up, you get your coffee, do all that shit, then you finally do a bit of work, then it's lunchtime, and you go to lunch, and then after that it's 2 p.m. is video game time at some studios, and you've done maybe 4 hours of work in the entire day, and then you're complaining that you go to work late, and it's total bullshit. There's the Pomodoro technique, and that is it's a very old school approach these days, but that would be working 25 minutes and then taking a break. And I do think that there is that extended approach, which I've at least done, which for me would be I would promise myself 90 minutes or 2 hours of uninterrupted work, which is kill your Facebook, kill all the other shit, set a timer so at least you got that kind of consciously in front of you to help you measure where you're at. And then just put your head down and do that. If you do that twice a day, the rest of the time, if you're fucking around, then those 2 segments of time that you had that focus, uninterrupted work, you get so much done that it makes up for the entire day.
Exactly, and it's a case of if you remember when you're back at school. For me, it's going back quite a bit. You not so much, but
fuck off.
For me, it's you're a little bit younger than me, a little bit, but
I just had to say it.
I'm 42 this year, man.
Yeah, I turn 18 in a few weeks. No, I'm kidding.
Hey?
I said I turn my 18th birthday is in a couple of weeks. Joking. I used to get so angry. I used to get kind of intimidated when I finally get to work with people who are younger than me. I'm like, damn it, it's finally happened.
I remember when you were freaking 16, man. Seriously, that was quite a trip.
Yeah.
It's man, 16 is too good.
It's kind of weird. Everyone around me. I went to my first SIGGRAPH in 2003, and who was it? There was all these people from Autodesk, and you know, it was Brandon Davis, all those other guys were there, and Neil Blevins, and everyone was like, man, I thought you'd be older. Like, I don't know why, but everyone pictured me. Well, I never had any pictures online of me, and I actually did that on purpose because I knew I was much younger than a lot of people, and for me to be taken seriously, I didn't want to be like, here I am, I'm a kid. So I never posted any like photos of me, and yeah, like most people pictured me with like a big beard. I asked a lot of people about it. It's like, what did you think I would look like? And everyone said the same thing, that I looked like you know, big beard and like older dude. And I'm like,
kind of like some slick back hair kind of thing. If you imagine Ted Boardman without the beard.
no, I wasn't sure if you knew Ted. I was gonna say everyone thought I looked like Ted Boardman, or imagined I would look like Ted.
Yeah, Ted's awesome.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So, but yeah, I was 21. I was like, yep, surprise. But I mean, that's just it. Like, that's another thing too. Is I kind of feel like these days we're at a point with the industry and just with everything in general that, you know, race, sex, age, none of those things are going to come into play or really hold you back. So I mean, if anyone uses it as an excuse, I do think for the most part it is a bit BS, because you know, you can do anything. I know people who are 17 and they're working at like MPC, Framestore, a lot of big studios, and you know, you've got all the power at your fingertips now, and you can have that anonymity of being online and working as well. So yeah,
I've met some like 15-year-old kids who are like some of the sculpt work that they do is just absolutely mind-boggling, absolutely amazing. But I mean, yeah, it's like, just dude, I'm going to be out of a job, seriously. I mean, some of the stuff. I mean, I remember. It must have been about 2006, 2007. I was doing some. I was at Animex Festival in the UK, and I was I think I was reporting for Video Wall at the time, and I was sitting on the Student Animation Awards. I'm like, holy shit, you guys are doing this! Oh my god, I'm gonna be out of a job, man. Seriously. One day, someone's gonna realize, you know, wake up and realize, actually, this guy's talking out his ass half the time. It's like, you know, someone's going to realise that I'm actually talking bollocks. You know, most of it is. I just turn my brain off and just let the filter between my brain and my mouth just turns off, and just whatever's up there just gets spewed out. And it's like, how the fuck have I managed to get this?
It is kind of funny that a lot of people, a lot of older people do have that intimidation of younger people, and like I've always hated it, especially back in the day, that no one used to share knowledge at all, because they'd be so protective about their one or two tricks. And the thing is that like these days I feel like I see it a lot again, and it's just because, you know, it's either foreigners or it's younger people taking their jobs. And if you're good at what you do, you're always going to evolve and you're always going to be able to get work. You know, but by you kind of having that negative personality, it's going to do more damage than good.
So things like, so what I've always kind of, you know, believed in is that, you know, the knowledge should be shared, it should be imparted, which is the reason why I didn't, you know, I wanted to stick everything that I'd done, no matter how inane or bullshit it was. You know, some of the stuff I've written, I know is bollocks. You know, it's okay, maybe not some, a lot of it I've written is bollocks. So, but I decided, okay, right, you know, whether someone, you know, if someone gets something out of it, then great. If they think, you know, okay, this is complete shite, then, you know, okay, fair enough. But at least possibly if you've learned something from it, then great. You know what I mean? And I don't believe in, like, you know, just holding stuff out. So look what I've done, isn't it amazing? I'm not going to tell you how I did it.
Exactly.
You know, come on, man, seriously, don't be a dick. You know, we're all trying to advance ourselves to the next level. You know, we're only collectively going to progress the industry. You know, either here in India or overseas or wherever it may be, by clubbing together and sharing and working together to do that through imparting of knowledge and training and getting the next generation of guys, you know, up to speed as fast as possible. Because none of us are any spring chickens anymore. You know, a lot of us are coming out of myself, for example, of, you know, not so much working on shots directly, but souping. So there's got to be some bugger, some poor shit to work the shot.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we're not gonna. You know, it's like, dude, I usust to love doing crunch time stuff. Not so much anymore. No, it's not really my cup of tea anymore. You know,
That's right.
I like my bed. You know, I like get back home, have a cup of tea and a cup of tea or a pint or something like that, and I like my bed. Kind of thing.
Well, I think everyone has that, where I think all of us, when we get to a certain point, like, we are either making our exit strategy or At least like we don't want to do the crazy crunch. And like the thing is, no one should, but at the same time, like there are going to be the people who are so excited and they're just like, yeah, I'm doing 3D, love it. 5 in the morning, whoops, where did the time go? And a lot of us, it's like, you've done your time in the trenches, and you don't expect like a war general to be running at front line doing all the shooting themselves. They're going to be applying their experience on a more larger scale. And
Delegation.
yeah,
Delegation. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So I mean, it's a case of like, I do miss it, and so you look back with nostalgia. It's like, yeah, I did enjoy doing that and what have you. But my possibly my blood pressure, my caffeine count, and everything else just kind of went up. And some other things also went up quite considerably, like my weight, for example, just skyrocketed the bloody roof kind of thing. So do I think it's detrimental to my health? Yeah, I mean a couple of guys that I know. One guy that I know had some serious health problems because of this game. The lethargy of sitting around in front of a workstation all day is it is detrimental. You got to get your chunky ass out on a treadmill every now and then. One tries to do every now and then, but not as much as I'd like. So it's going to the stage now. I think for me that I'm going to see how everything plays out here, and post that. Do I think I'll go and join another company if, as or when I decide to leave India in the future, whenever it may be, if it happens or whatever? Don't know, not sure. I thought about going into teaching. If, as or when I decide to leave Makuta, I think if anything, I'd more than likely get into trying to train people to not make the same mistakes I did. Try and get people to what's the word? Look on the distance of art forms and try and get them to think outside the box and so on. So
That's right.
We'll see. I'm not 100% sure yet. Still enjoying what I'm doing and whatever. So it's a long way off.
Yeah. Anyway. No, that's good though. Well, let's ask you a couple more questions, and we'll wrap it up, and you can get back to Walking Dead. But what I was going to say is like India's industry is huge. I mean, do you have any advice for anyone over there who wants to break in the industry or is in the industry and kind of like wants to step it up a little bit?
This place is like it is so rich with artistic heritage. Absolutely tons. You go anywhere and there is something. Even from the sculpture work of like local mosques or going through some of the forts, anything back to the old tapestry work. It's absolutely tons and tons and tons and tons of it. But the thing is here, it's not overly encouraged, especially in this modern age. It's encouraged. The kids are encouraged to get into not an artistic field. They're encouraged to get into like do an MBA or do business management, do IT or whatever it may be, or a doctorate or something like that. If you're artistic and you have that, you have that, thing in your blood, then exploit it.
Yeah.
It's I've said this goddamn times. It's like this place should be absolutely it should be the forefront. The history, the sheer history of it. It goes back thousands of years. I've been down to. There's one place I visited, which is I'm going to pronounce it now, and I'm going to completely screw it up. Mahabalipuram, which is down past Chennai. It's around about 50 kilometers south of Chennai. I
don't want to offend anyone, but it sounds like you'd have about 6 beers to pronounce that right.
I'm on my fifth glass of wine at the minute, and very last as well. So down there was one guy. I think the last time I visited was it must have been a good 6 years back. And there was this one guy who was a stonemason. He was literally just carving out sculptures, from, muscle memory, out of soapstone. And he was an absolute freaking genius. You put him or his son, who was also doing it, in front of ZBrush or something like that.
And they probably rock it out.
It worked wonders, man. Seriously. There was one kid, there's a crafts village, which is just up the road from where I live, called Shilpram, which they sell anything from pashminas, anything through to carvings that are old tea chests, that kind of thing. And there was one guy, and he was selling these gouache paintings, like micro art almost. These really, really fine, intricate pieces. And I must have bought like 6 of these things. And I was like, who did this? He goes, my daughter did them. Oh, holy shit, how old is she? She's like 15.
Wow.
And the way they did it is that they took one of the old deeds from like about 1950s, 1960s, something like that. So the paper was totally aged, full stains. It was all the old government of India stamp on it. And this person had painted a historical piece on this aged paper, and it just popped. It just looked absolutely freaking amazing. It just grabbed me. So I gave my details to him and said, look, man, seriously, this, while you may be making a living on this thing, seriously, you need to get this person into digital art. Seriously, just get them in front of Photoshop, get them in front of freaking, Max Meyer, whatever it may be, and just expose them to a different medium, because that's all it is. That's all VFX is. It's just a different medium. Mediums change throughout the years,
exactly,
through the ages, but this is just a different one. So just get them in front of that, because they could just do so much for the game here, and nationally, internationally, and everything, and it'd be absolutely freaking awesome. But the thing is, the way it's perceived here and also elsewhere in the world is that, even in the UK, is that art is not a profession as such. It's a
You've got a bunch of crayons and you're just dicking around until you get your real job.
Mike Curtis, or basically he'll go, yeah, actually, but I use crayons, so I'm fine. He's the guy who did Bob the Builder, and he's a crayon boy by definition anyway. So, right. And this thing, he did that. This is the thing. He's a guy, case in point, who works with crayons. He sketches for a living. He writes for a living. He's a creative chap. He's the production designer on one of the biggest shows that has seen the light of television for kids. It's got a huge franchise. This thing. Bob's got a massive bloody franchise, and he was the guy who designed the character work for it. He's the one who's he's the one who's attributed to this thing, and that's it's one of his principal pitch pieces, and he's great at it. But he markets himself as he's a crayon boy. He uses Crayola crayons. So any particular medium itself will, if you want to exploit it, you want to get into this thing, you do it. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. As long as you enjoy it. I mean, Christ. I mean, my dad said to me, years and years ago, do something you like doing. Don't just take a job that is just going to bring money, and do something. You're going to do it for the next 40 plus years. Yep. So you may as well enjoy yourself, for Christ's sake. Find a job you like doing. You don't have to work again for the rest of your life. The grandfathers said that also.
That's good advice.
It's something that like I say, you're going to be doing it for the next 40 years plus, man. So you may as well have fun. Otherwise, it's just going to be like, oh crap, got to go to work again. Shit.
Well, I've seen that. Like, otherwise you end up seeking that like fulfillment elsewhere. You know what I mean? Like in your spare time, you end up doing all this stuff because you're not getting it at your work. And like I know people right now who are like like clockwork. Their Sundays are pretty much always dreading Monday. So it's like, yeah, it's the weekend, and they get one day, and then they spend literally all of Sunday just being like, I don't want to work tomorrow, and freaking out about it, which is not like a healthy thing to do. But if you find something that mightn't pay as well as the other thing, the banking job or the IT thing or whatever your parents told you to go do, but you find something that you find fulfilling and rewarding, then it isn't work. And like I went out the other night, and people were asking me about like what I do, and someone said like you work a lot of hours, don't you? And I'm like, well, I love what I do. Like I don't work because I have to. I'm doing it because I'm enjoying it. Like it's fun. I love it.
I mean, it's like when I used to, when I was freelance, I used to, I'd get up in the morning, like first thing, get myself, down to my, office I had in the house, and like, oh, has the render crashed? Yes, it has. Oh, that's right. Okay. Next thing, go into the kitchen, coffee on, back in there, and then just carry on, and then looking like, oh shit, it's lunch. Yep. So it just flies. It just flies by, kind of thing. And and it's not because of lack of like, oh shit, the time's going. It's like you just get absorbed in it.
That's right.
If you love something that you're doing, it's like you just get totally absorbed in it, and you end up loving what you're doing and having fun with it. And I still feel that. I get my jollies from different areas of it now than what I used to. Like, for example, I get my kicks from, like, if I have one of my guys, they've nailed something, they've nailed a shot, they've nailed a track, they've nailed a model, this kind of thing. Or like, one of my concept guys have done something freaking awesome, that I may have assisted to, I may not have, but they've done it. They've either thought outside the box and they've done something great. It's like, yeah, man, fuck yeah, you've actually done something completely bloody brilliant here. There's no right or wrong here. It's art. Just go for it, kind of thing. And that's how I get my kicks now, as opposed to physically, being hands on. If I've managed to help, great. But for me, it's now the self gratification that I get, if you like.
It's like being a parent. You get to see your kid grow up instead of. Yeah, that's cool. Yes. That's really cool.
But yeah. But it's I guess it's like that. Yeah, it's like, oh my god, you're fruition.
So proud of you picking him up and spinning him around. It's getting a little bit creepy in the office. So with your book, when you wrote that, I mean, we'll chat about that for a second. About deconstructing elements, or deconstructing the elements, wasn't it? So how did that come to be? You're just like, woke up one day, it's like, fuck it, I'm gonna write a book.
No, totally freaking opposite. Didn't even think about it in any way, shape, or form. I was doing for some unbeknownst reason. Now, bear in mind, I quit my job for another job, actually, which didn't come to pass back in, I don't know, 2001, 2002, or something like that. I was kind of promised one from this one little chap, which kind of like fell through. So stupidly, I quit my job under the pretext from this one chap saying that, yeah, I'm going to hire you, and everything's going to be great, and blah 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 blah. So I quit, handed my notice in this one place, and didn't hear anything from this chap. And I was due to start on the Monday. I'm kind of going around the houses here, mate, a little bit, as I do. But long story short, I'll try. So on the Friday before the Monday, I phoned him up saying, so are we still good for Monday? And he's like, yeah. I mean, well, okay, but I still not had a letter of, acceptance from you yet. So what the hell? And he got very, very arsey. He's like, well, I've never missed a payment in my life or anything like that. I've never missed a job payment or paid my salaries to my artists in my entire life. I'll fire 3 people to bring you in. I'm like, well, I kind of don't want to do that, because that means that I want to work with these people. That's the reason why I was coming in. Yeah. And that means you're a bit of a dick. So, no. Well, phone me back when you've got something more interesting to say. Click.
Wow.
I'm honest. I'm like, okay, so now I'm officially a freelancer? I guess. Okay, so I was totally out of work, man. Nothing. Absolutely jack shit. Roll on 2 months later, I'd done like about 2-3 small gigs or some shit. I get a call from Computer Arts magazine. So we're doing this big kind of expo in London. We've got a panel discussion about how to succeed in freelancing. Do you want to speak at it? It's a free trip to London and blah, blah, blah. You'll meet all these people and such and such. I'm like, okay, fine, no problem. I'll go and do it, because I'm an expert at freelancing out of 2 months that I've spent doing it. So I pop off down to London and I sit with a couple of lads. One who's a conceptual artist. The other guy is, I think he worked for Shinola, one of the conceptual animation houses that was out there. And these guys are freaking awesome. Rich is like absolutely freaking awesome. So I'm sat there sandwiched between these two chaps. I'm like, I'm totally going to have to wing the living shit out of this. So I spat off, and it must have been off a ton of bollocks. This was like 2002, man. So like, I'm just like totally naive, just spat off a ton of crap. And I came out of that at the end going, I think I did all right. And this woman just approached me, Marie. She says, yeah, so we've seen some of your stuff, and because I'd published by that point, I'd done like around about 2 years worth of papers for 3D World and published them at the time. So yeah, we've seen some of your stuff there. Do you want to write a book? I'm like, you what? Oh yeah, we'll if we got anything on, we can do this. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll have a think about it. So originally the title at that time was How to Freelance with 3ds Max.
Okay.
That was the original idea. And then I sat down I think at that point in my life, I was living at a house which was on the bank of a canal. It's like, flat piece of water with a tow path next to it. I get people walking up and down outside every day and whatever. I used to look outside and I'd just end up staring at the water that was passing by and the reeds and everything that was in it. And I'd just literally just sit and I'd break it down. I could do it that way, I could do it that way. And I realized that the way that I thought about how to create something, even when I was not sat at my desk, trying to calculate and work out how to create something, I was actually doing it while I was walking around.
Right.
So I'd see like an interesting, I don't know, hill formation or a cloud formation or whatever it may be, or a moon with concentric rings around it from the ice crystals in the atmosphere, or whatever it may be. I was analyzing it and breaking it down, and I had the Max interface in my head, and I had all of this shit break down in my head, and I realized that I was, to coin the phrase, deconstructing how to actually be able to do it. And I phoned up the publisher the following day. It's like, right, I've got a better idea. This is really what I want to do. She went, it won't work. It won't work. Not a chance in hell. So I had to pitch it and write God knows how many letters to the editors and to whomsoever, and they finally bought it. And Dan was like, okay. So I goes, right, how many pages do I need to do? She goes, 300. I'm like, what?
So much for those 50 tips you're struggling with a few years back.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up basically just drafting out subjects, literally just blocking out subjects and stuff. And she goes, oh, we'll get all these people to do this and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, I don't know that guy. I don't know that guy. I don't know that guy. I really want to kind of, do the research. And if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do it right. If I'm going to put, my heart and soul into this, if my name's going to be on the frigging cover, I want this to be correct. So I don't want to pull punches. I don't want to hold back or anything. I want to make sure that, everything's right for whoever's reading it. So I spent, I think it was around about 9 months writing this thing and developing scenes and sourcing material from all over the shop. And the entire thing really was never about what the title was, recreating natural effects. That was never the lesson. The entire thing from the book was one simple lesson, and that was study your reference.
Right.
That was the only lesson that I wanted to get across.
So if you were going to publish it now, you would have called it youtube.com.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah. So it was just a case of that was the only primary lesson I wanted to get across to people. It's just like, you're only as good as your reference material. E.g., you don't think, put it this way, you paint a bowl of fruit. You don't look at the bowl of fruit, go, look at it and go, I've got it, shut the fruit away, and then go ahead and paint it.
Exactly.
You have the thing in front of you constantly as you're studying the light, tone of reference, how the light bounces off such and such, how the highlights and the secondary light bounces off such and such onto whatever. And it's a constant thing. It's a constant development thing as you take and see something else. Even just, while I'm talking to you now, I'm looking across at one of the chairs in my lounge and seeing how the light plays off that and how the imperfections of the wood there and so on, and how to recreate that kind of thing. That's still rattling as a secondary thing around in my brain. Possibly it's the wine. But it's a case of, it's one of these things that, you never, once you get into being able to break down and analyze something into its core components and how to recreate it, just like an artist would with any type of medium, you can be out and about in the middle of freaking wherever, and you'll be able to structurally analyze how to break something down and recreate it digitally or in any other medium either, just by observing. So the lesson from the book, or, they ended up, doing 3 of the bloody things, was you're only as good as your reference material. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's the only lesson for the entire thing. And it did all right. The advance I managed to get back and stuff, and it did all right in the 2nd edition, and the 3rd one did. Would I do another one? No, not really. I don't think.
Was that just because the amount of work to go into it, or?
That plus the amount of crap that I went through on the third one, man, it was absolute. It was like a knife in the heart, mate. To be honest. Long story short, again, the first and second ones were all with like a DVD edition. And the third one, when it came out, or sorry, before it came out, the decision was that, well, we're going to retire the first and second. I was like, all right, but it's still relevant. The feed, like you said earlier, they don't retire features in Macs.
Yeah.
So everything that has been done in the first and second one is, you can still do. So it's like, no, I don't want to retire them. I want to keep them out. So, well, they said, well, once you've done another edition, we retire the old ones. It's like, well, I'm not rewriting, I think I'm doing a completely new volume.
Yeah, it's so chapter 2, chapter 3.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to make this stuff available to people. It's, well, the only thing we can do then is like stick it on a DVD. It's like, well, just you're going to have to include 2 DVDs then. It's like, well, we can't do that. So, all right, fine. Do a website, make it available on that. They're like, okay, fine. So they built this website that wasn't ready until 3 months after the book was published.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that, plus all the reference material that was coming with it and all the Mac scenes, because I had a serious problem with plagiarism and people nicking shit and doing dodgy copies of the thing in the first 2 versions. So, that got time to like fuck in the first copy, which was, like I say, it was a kick up the ass, man, seriously. So I decided, okay, let's try and secure this thing. So I built it so that you had to start with the base scene. You had to open the main Mac scene. I learned this one pretty well. You had to, open up the first scene and build from that. 2 reasons for that. Number one is the first, the majority of comments and feedback that I had from the first 2 books. So, people are like, I'm having problems with this tutorial, it doesn't bloody work, blah, 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 blah. Like, dude, did you follow step 1 where it says set the units to centimeters? Okay, thanks, bye. And that was it. So by getting them to load a base scene, forcefully set the unit references, and it set all the base geometry within there, and any kind of deflectors or anything like that was in there. It was in exactly the right place where it needed to be.
Yeah.
So that plus, okay, without all this other shit, you can't do it. So they had to not only be able to pirate the book, but they also had to pirate the content as well. And I made sure that there was a lot. There was gigabytes. So at that time, the net was, the broadband speeds weren't that high. So therefore, it was dumping a lot of stuff and that was kind of fine. By the time the third version came out, the net had obviously picked up. People had like 50 meg connections, 20 meg connections, and so on. So downloading 4 gigs worth of content there was nothing really to worry about.
Right.
So we decided to, okay, let's play on people's securities, e.g., each book is security coded. Every single book was security coded. You had to register with a security code at the back of your book on a website, so therefore only you could download the stuff. And if we found that lots of people were using one specific email address, we could lock it.
Yeah.
That was perfectly fine until the publisher decided, okay, we didn't have time to do this, so we just left it open. We just dumped everything online.
Okay.
Seriously? Then it came to pass that somewhere between the publisher, I'm not going to get proper statistics for this. Somewhere between the publisher and the printer, wherever the heck they were, someone leaked a PDF live text version of the book online before it even went to friggin' print.
Jesus.
Yeah, so there was a live, and it wasn't a case of like some guy in his bedroom somewhere in God knows where had put the book through a sheet feeder and a scanner and stuff to
This is
assemble
like
a PDF.
the raw original content that you would send to print, right?
But a low-res version with the low-res image version in there.
Wow.
So the text was live. So it wasn't the final version. It was somewhere between the I think it was like second to last or third to last version that I did before it actually went to the final. But that got leaked. That got leaked online somewhere between the publisher and the printer, and I went absolute batshit. And they've since asked me, okay, do you want to do another version? I just listed all the shit that went wrong with the last one. I went, in a nutshell, no, not doing it. Sorry. It's, put it this way, for me to do another one, I'd need to spend a good, again, 8 months of my life designing the scenes. I mean, for me to design the scene and to break it down into components, record it.
It's a lot of work that goes into it.
It's like a week. I always spend a minimum 5 days developing it, sourcing the reference material, getting permission to do that, plus typing it up and repeating it twice minimum to make sure that I've got all the steps correct if I'm following it myself. And then I'll pass it to a tech checker just for grammaring to make sure everything's correct and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it'd take me about a week, calendar week, including a couple of days off to change my brain to another one for each one. So if you're doing 30 of them, that's 30 weeks, man.
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of the year.
It is.
So therefore, I need to spend and be able to financially be able to afford to be able to do that within that particular timescale. So if all those boxes are ticked, yeah, I'll do it. And
then piracy comes in, so you don't actually even barely break even, get the money back. So you're pretty much working for free for a year just to make something.
The third one, I made a little bit on it. I made the advance back plus a bit extra, not much. And we're talking a few thousand quid, mate. It wasn't. I think the advance I got was like, I don't know, eight grand sterling or something. Mm-hmm. That was it. Yeah, it wasn't a great deal. And this is the thing. One of the editors, who I don't think is there anymore, says, "Oh yeah, you don't write books for us for profit. You do it for the kudos." I'm like, what the fuck are you even trying to use this, man? Seriously, come on. So if I was going to do it again, I'd just do video tests or something, or the things for me though, like if I'm doing, I did a bunch of video tutorials for two reasons. Number one, it would pad out the DVD space so I could get up to 4 gig. Right. And the second reason was that it was faster for me to do it. I didn't have to write it, edit it, re-edit it, recheck it, and everything else. If I knew I screw up, I used to blow in the microphone like this. I used to blow in the microphone like that. So it would peak in the waveform so I could see where I screwed up. So I'd then go back, edit it from that particular point, and then carry on. So I didn't interrupt my flow.
That's what a lot of people do. Then you just look for the clicks in the waveform.
Why the fuck did I do that? Just sort of like blowing into the microphone, deafening myself.
Or I've actually got one of the Hollywood slates right here. So you drop the wood down. So a lot of people always wonder, like, what do you have that for? And it's because that way you can use that pop to sync the audio from several cameras, bring it all together. And I agree. I mean, back when I used to write all writing for a book is a whole other thing. It's way more work. But like writing just like articles or tutorials back in the 90s, that would be like an all-day thing just for one lesson. If I, whatever it was, it was so much work. Whereas like doing a video tutorial, it was like, okay, I hit record, and like if I make mistakes, I've got a good system for managing all that. But it's just so much easier just to show someone than to write and format, and even the images and everything else is just like, fucking kill me. It's so much work. But that's cool, man. And I mean, it sucks though too that like you are at that point where it's like, I can do all this. It's so much work, and it's not going to make you rich, but maybe you can at least afford to do it. But then you got the piracy part of it, which means that like you're literally just losing most of the sales, so you're not even like getting any profit.
Like, for me, it was like, I never had the impression really that I'd make an absolute shitload from it. I mean, again, that was never really the driving force. As long as I could sustain myself by doing it, I was comfortable and stuff, then that was fine. I wasn't expecting to like make an absolute shit. I mean, I know one guy. I'm not mentioning names, but I know one guy who wrote one book at the same time I was writing my first one. I met up with him in London at this one event, and he said, "Oh, you got a book deal?" I was like, "Yeah, I've done all right by it, and I've managed to sustain myself and stuff for the next 8 months or so." He's like, "All right, cool. About you?" He goes, "Well, I managed to pay off my mortgage. I bought a boat and a car." Like,
wow.
Like, in what? He wrote a book on Unreal. I was like, shit, man, I'm on the wrong fucking line of work.
So that was a book on 3D or on a different subject?
It was a book on Unreal.
Okay, so it was actually on game development.
Yeah. And he made I mean, he's advanced. He managed to like pay his mortgage off. He bought a freaking boat. He bought a freaking car, and it's like, holy. But I think he paid his mum's mortgage off as well. It's like, holy shit.
Wow.
Seriously. That's impressive. That's a freaking deal. I need your marketing manager. Man. Seriously.
That's right. That's pretty mind blowing. Cool, man.
But like, let's say, if the boxes are checked, then like I say, I'd do it again. But I'd want to get myself back up to speed before I did it. You know, actually physically hands on. So like I say, I class myself as still old school.
Yeah.
You know, I like using the old methods, and so I feel like you can sit and you can send this, do this, and whatever. But still, if at the end of the day, if it looks right, it's right.
That's right.
It doesn't matter if it's because of such and such, so we use this type. It's like, no, man, seriously. At the end of the day, if it looks cool, then it looks right, and everything, all the boxes are checked there, then it's fine.
Yeah, you don't need to overcomplicate stuff. That's a really popular thing with effects, is that everyone loves to be the martyr and try and overcomplicate everything. When
it does. It does. It really does. Sometimes the old methods are the best, and sometimes as long as it looks right, then who gives two shits how you've done it? As long as it looks cool, and you've hit the nail and you've delivered it, then it doesn't matter how you've done it.
Yeah, agreed. Cool, man. Well, I'll wrap it up there, because I know we've been going on for a bit, but this has been really cool. Like, it's been great to catch up and also get a bit of insight into all the stuff you've been doing. Go ahead. Sorry.
When you edit it, please try and make me not look like a twat.
No promises. I'm kidding. Honestly, this has been fun. So I think everything that you've talked about has been pretty relevant. Right. But yeah, I just want to say thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, great, mate. Nice one.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun to do that with Pete, and I'm glad that he took time out from The Walking Dead to chat. So I'm going to leave it there. If you want to get to the show notes, just go to www.alanmckay.com/62 for episode 62. And you can get on my inner circle by going to www.alanmckay.com/inside. And that will give you access to a lot of really cool content. I've got a lot more stuff coming up for that very soon. So sign up and you'll be able to hear about a lot of stuff before anyone else, as well as a lot of content that I don't publicly release, including stuff like email scripts, things like that. So actual emails that I use to get work, and a lot of other really cool stuff. All right, so I'll leave it there. Next episode, I've got more stuff coming out. I believe the next episode I'm putting out is actually going to be about what to do when you kind of hit your cap in terms of what you can ask for money. And this is actually a really great example of how to go from, let's say, $60 an hour to $500 an hour. And some of the really cool hacks that I've been able to apply to my career to kind of get what I'm worth while still dealing with budget constraints and things like that. So it should be a really cool one. It's one that I was a little bit iffy about putting out just because everyone's so funny about money, but I think that this is something that will be hopefully very valuable to everyone. Okay, so that is it. Have a great week, and hopefully I get to see you in Paris.